Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about the X-Files Season 2, Episode 2. It's called The Host. So spoilers for the episode. It's a monster episode. We got sewage systems, lots and lots of sewage systems. We got Russian ships and even an origin that ties back to Chernobyl somehow by the end, which caught me off guard because it does come out of relative nowhere right at the very end. Like, it's something Scully's put together. Basically, the creature in this is a result of radiation, and which, you know, I'm always a fan of because it gives me Godzilla vibes. But it's the idea that this thing's like this mutant that's gestated in a cocktail of radiation and other fun things. But yeah, so it's a fun episode actually, though. I think this is a more sort of like typical monster episode, but much like, say, Squeeze last season, I think it does a pretty fun job of making the monster be creepy. I think first and foremost, this is a lot more of a prosthetic and makeup style creature. This is not just some contact lenses on a guy acting creepy. This is absolutely the sort of monster you might get in like an episode of Buffy or something like that. And it's got a very disgusting kind of anus mouth with just a couple of teeth at the top and bottom. So the visual design of it really sticks out. And I think the creepy dark sewer areas that were in this episode and the idea that it kind of attacks you from underwater, you know, the reason why Jaws works is because something grabbing you when you can't see it under the water is quite good and effective. So all that stuff is quite good. It's interesting though, because obviously we're still not at the stage where we've got the X-Files as an entity back in operation. Although this episode certainly paves the way for how we're going to get there, I think. The key thing being there's someone in the FBI who is an ally of Mulder and Scully who we do not know. The voice did sound familiar to me, not from this show. Like, I don't think it's a character we've met on this show, but I think I recognize the actor's voice from something. So I'll when we finally see who it is, I'll be. I mean, it'll probably be in the credits. I'm going to try and not look just for the fun of the surprise later on. But Mulder is taken off his surveillance case, which he's still working at the start of the episode, and told that he's got a murder case to go do. And it's this body that was in the cold open, which was on a Russian ship, where this young guy working on the ship was told to do something with the sewage tanks, and he gets attacked inside the sewage tank. He gets pulled under, they flush the tanks, and he shows up in a New Jersey sewer system. So Mulder goes to investigate it, and it's kind of interesting that he's sent in here as if it's just like, it's a crappy murder case, it's not the sort of thing the FBI usually deal with, because it doesn't seem like a big deal, and Mulder's quite pissy about it. Which made me laugh a little bit, because obviously we already know, the audience, that it is an X-File, right? We already know that it's something creepy and it's like a monster or a mutant or an alien or something like that. But Mulder doesn't know that, so he's pretty pissed, right? When he sees the crime scene and he's kind of annoyed, he goes to Skinner to like basically complain and say, why do you keep wasting my time? It was a little bit funny to me, because all throughout season one of the running things that I kept bringing up is that Mulder, from the second he gets a case, already has kind of an idea and a belief as to what the supernatural or paranormal thing is that's the result of it. So it was really funny in the context of this episode that he, not until, maybe a third or so into the episode, when he's given something to build, a reason to think that there's something creepier going on, that he just doesn't see it, and he thinks it's just a crappy gang-related murder where someone's been dumped in the sewer. That was a little bit funny to me. It's like his sixth sense has just been turned off, and maybe that ties into what I was saying last episode about how he's kind of lost his mojo a little bit. He's not quite as... He's not as firm in his belief as he once was, and maybe this is kind of a funny little meta offshoot of that, is that he doesn't have his Mulder sixth sense kicking in right away. Although it is quite funny in the episode, because a sewage worker's attacked in the sewer a little bit after the crime scene stuff. He's dragged underwater. His buddy's able to pull him up though, but he did get bit, and he's got this big bite mark in his back. Mulder comes to see him, and sort of find out if this is connected to the case and all that. It's when the doctor is explaining that she's never seen anything like this, and that the bite is, this bacteria and the bite on his back is something she's never seen before. You can actually see the moment where Mulder's eyes start to light up, where he's like, wait a minute. This isn't just a murder. There's something weird about this. Oh, baby, we're so back. Like, you can almost see it in his eyes. Which I did get a good chuckle out of. Obviously, Scully kind of like volunteers to help, even though she's not working directly with them. She's doing autopsies and stuff, so she kind of volunteers to do the autopsy for the victim, and ends up investigating stuff based on what she finds about this parasite that's inside. It turns out the monster's like a human hybrid of this parasite by the end. They think it's just a big version of it. But, as we find out at the end with the Chernobyl mutation stuff, is that it actually is part human. There's human in there in some level. So, yeah, all that's good. Obviously, this mysterious friend in the FBI calls Mulder a couple of times, seems to slip a newspaper to Scully that talks about this ship, because up until that, they have no idea this connects to a Russian ship. There is some Russian lettering on a tattoo on the arm, but nothing to really connect it to anything specific until this mysterious friend gives them the hint that it's connected to this ship, which kind of leads Scully down this path. But the message that this mysterious friend says to Mulder, well, the first time it's just that you've got a friend in the FBI, and that's pretty much it. But the second time is that he has to solve this case, he has to finish this case, because the reinstatement of the X-Files has to be undeniable. Meaning that you have to show the FBI and the world, I mean, not the whole world, because they're not really getting told all this, but you know what I mean. You have to show that this needs to exist because these cases exist. And interestingly enough, Skinner, right, after we've had because this is the thing, like, this is not just a theory either. They straight up catch the monster, right? Mulder goes to the sewage treatment facility in New Jersey, New York specifically, and they end up finding it in like one of the pipes, one of the big thick pipes. This monster's just in there. It's a pretty creepy visual, actually. So they've got straight up just caught him. They have whatever this creature is trapped in a room. So there's no denying that it exists. So when Mulder goes to Skinner afterwards with his report, and Skinner's done reading it, he actually flat out admits that this should have been an X-Files, because Mulder says, hey, if me and Scully were investigating this, we might have saved this man. The sewage worker that got released from the hospital that I mentioned had the bite mark, he actually ended up dying at home from stuff. He coughed up a parasite. He couldn't get this taste out of his mouth, so he was like squirting toothpaste into his mouth. It's actually, which honestly is quite, that came off as a little disgusting, because it's not pleasant sounding. Obviously, if you had some horrible taste in your mouth that you couldn't get rid of, you might start doing that too. But that made me wince bizarrely. But yeah, like, so he's died, right? He's coughing up shit in the shower, and Mulder says maybe we could have saved him if we were investigating this as the X-Files. Which I appreciate the point of that. I will maybe just throw a slight question and say, would things have went that much differently in this case if you and Scully were investigating it officially as an X-File? Because it feels like you've still been investigating it. The only thing that seems to be really different is that you didn't magically know in your gut that it was something supernatural from the start. That's the only real difference I can see, to be honest. But maybe Scully being in the field with him would have made all the difference. I don't know. But either way, I do appreciate the sentiment, though. It's this idea that Skinner's even acknowledging, he says after that he agrees that it should be an X-File, that we all have our orders, implying that the decision to not have the X-Files is not his, it's something above him that's coming down the chain. So, more stuff to deal with there. I was thinking at this point that by the end of the episode, Mulder was going to, deal with this monster, and that was going to convince the FBI to open the X-Files. That's actually not happened yet. They're actually holding out a little bit. So it seems like we're maybe going to do a few of these kind of like cases where it's not officially X-Files yet, until they can't deny that they need them to exist. Like, there's a purpose for them. It's funny because it makes me think a little bit. I've been watching the Ghostbusters movies recently on the Collector's Cut, or movie podcast over on Mail Fuzz Movies. If you don't know that exists, I was thinking as I was watching this idea of proving that your service has to exist. That's kind of similar to the Ghostbusters. You have to kind of prove that these ghosts exist, and there's a need for these ghost exterminators. I feel like there's a little bit of that in the X-Files right now for me, where it's like, no, we're having to prove that there's a need for the X-Files. And maybe that's why there's more overt proof now that they can show people. I mean, obviously Skinner still thinks, oh, we'll put him in an asylum. It's clearly a man who's changed. And he's not entirely wrong, I suppose, in a sense. But we're going to have to try and rehabilitate. I don't think you're going to rehabilitate this guy. He's kind of past that point, I would say. But yeah, that was a fun thing. The earlier meeting where he goes to see Skinner to like yell at him for giving him shit cases. Skinner eventually lets him into his office, only to reveal there's an entire room of people sitting at a table for a meeting that Mulder's now interfering with. I do kind of like that because it kind of shows that, well, we obviously root for Mulder and he's got a lot of good intentions. Like, this did show him to be acting like a little shithead a little bit. Like, he comes in the room and it's like, oh, you thought this was all about you and that Skinner would have time for you. But no, there's actually a whole, like, agency being run here. Like, there's other things going on at the FBI that don't revolve around you. And I kind of appreciated that little bit as a result. So the episode goes, the creature is being transferred to a mental hospital, I think. But he breaks out of the ambulance, kills the ambulance driver, who, I think they sneak in an F-bomb here, which kind of stuck out because obviously it's network TV. I guess they get away with it because he hasn't quite finished the word, but they do this thing where the driver like sees that he's missing the monster and he gets his shotgun and he's sort of creeping around and he's looking to see where he is, and he's in the back of the ambulance, and then it goes to a wide shot outside just looking at the ambulance, and you hear a scream and you see a gunshot, like a flash of light from the gunshot. But as he screams, he goes, "Fuck!" And you don't quite hear the end of it, I guess. So I guess that's how they get away with it. But it was clearly an F-bomb. So, I don't know. I thought that sold how creepy the creature was. Which, I think, you know, I was starting this off by saying the makeup and the prosthetics of the design of the creature were quite good. They were disgusting, but in a good way. And I think that goes a long way. That, you know, as much as I compared it to like a random monster from an episode of Buffy, and I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? People, you know, the hit television show, like I love that show, and that show is wonderfully written. But a lot of the random monsters that aren't more permanent do tend to be a bit cheaper because like they're only using them for one episode. And I think one of the things that maybe set an X-Files apart, not for all of its episodes, because we all remember the Jersey Devil stuff. That was some just dirt smeared on people, right? But this maybe stands out as being one of the strengths of the show, is the level of detail and effort that's went into this particular character. I think I want to commend that a little bit, because I think this episode, I can easily see a version of this episode that's really, really bad. I can totally see it. But I think between setting up the rules of always try to get back into sewage water, the idea that we even make recurring elements out of like the locations, you know, after the creature escapes, it actually hides in a porta potty, and then it sort of goes into the tank. Like the sewage guy comes with a tank to empty the toilet, and it seemingly goes into the tank, and and obviously that goes to the sewage treatment plant. That's where it takes that stuff. So we end up back there. So the guy who runs the plant that Mulder was talking to earlier when they found the creature ends up coming back and being a character again later on. And it kind of just, it gave it this sense of like, we're playing with the rules that we've set up throughout the episode, and we're trying to figure out where it's going. That guy does unfortunately end up meeting his demise. He falls into the water when they go to try and cut off, because the creature's trying to get out to the sea. By this point in the episode, Scully's figured out that it's trying to reproduce. It's trying to put its children effectively into incubators. A little face huggery, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But obviously we don't want to run tons of these things swimming around. That would make things very dangerous, so very important to stop it. Ultimately, Actually, does the sewage guy live? He might live, actually. I think he might actually survive now that I'm thinking about it. Either way, Mulder ends up killing the monster because it tries to go through the hatch in the sewage system, and he shuts the panel, the door, and it cuts the monster in half. So, which is a fun moment. It's a fun moment. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think the sewage guy lives. Does he? I can't remember. I can't remember if he lives or not. Is he alive at the end of that scene? I do not remember. It's not that important, ultimately. But the poor guy was just trying to do his job, and he ended up helping with this super weird FBI investigation. Credit to him. He gave it his all. I can't fault him for it. So, very good. So, Mulder's pretty smelly. He's been in sewage water. It's a whole thing. It's actually, like, I think they did a really good job as well. This is just a little thing, but they really sold how smelly everything was in this episode. Like, early on when they first find the body and Mulder has to put on the wellies to go into the sewer, he immediately smells, it's hard to deal with. Or even before that, in the ship where the guy opens the sewage tank and he's like struggling with the smell. Like, it's just constantly, it's probably the smelliest episode of X-Files, right? I almost wanted to start this review off by saying this was a really, really shit episode. Not in quality, but in literal shit. Like, there's so much, like, at least implied shit because of all the sewage stuff that, like, they do a good job of, like, just, like, constantly being this factor every time they go into a sewer, when they're at the treatment plant and there's just pools of this stuff. It always just feels, like, really smelly. When Scully's, like, cutting open the body for the autopsy and she's poking around and finding things, like, she's trying to hold her breath and not take any of it in. Yeah, all good stuff. And it actually leads to a sweet little moment, actually, when Scully's showing Mulder the jar with the little parasite in it. And they sort of, like, realize that they're almost bickering like they were when they were on an X-Files case, because he's making these big grand ideas and she's like, Mulder, and then she sort of realizes, oh wait, this is like old times. So it's funny to almost have that nostalgia after one season, but that's kind of what they're going for with that moment. It basically, they want the audience to long for them to be back on the team again. They want them to be the X-Files again. They want the audience to root for the reinstatement. Which, as long as you were enjoying the show, you're probably going to want that. But I think that's kind of the design of that. It's to tease it. It's to edge you a little bit towards the reunion officially. Obviously, she keeps helping him with these things anyway. But, so very curious to see when we do officially are back as the X-Files. Maybe it'll take another couple of cases. Who knows? Well, you guys probably do because you've seen the show already. But I don't know, and I'm looking forward to finding out. After this, Mulder is informed by Scully about her findings about where the ship came from, and it used to be used to dispose of stuff from Chernobyl, of waste and things like that, and that this creature seems to be some kind of mutant that was formed out of all that, which, I always love a good mutant created by radiation. It's a very classic sci-fi concept. It's very old school and 50s era stuff, which is funny because I don't typically think of X-Files as... Well, actually, that's not true. Because classic aliens and flying saucers are very 50s as well. And this show kind of really dabbles with that. I guess it's just a lot of the standalone episodes tend not to be more classical stuff like that. So, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about that, how the show is effectively just taking a lot of these older sci-fi ideas and, putting a new spin on it and a new sort of more intense kind of horror element to it. So... yeah. No, I thought this was a fun episode. I think, like I say, the creature design was fun. The idea that it's always under the sewage water, so it's hard to get a hold to. Which, honestly, because they spent a good half of the episode never showing it, I think it was actually really effective when they did just immediately show it. Like, see, when you first see it in the pipe, when it gets trapped, and you get a good look at the whole thing, I really appreciated that just how... like stark that was, like just how it's like, oh, now you're suddenly seeing it and you're confronted with the reality that this thing exists. It's not being treated as some like hidden thing anymore. And I think the idea of like everyone having to be aware of that and it being undeniable that it exists, multiple people see it, Skinner has to read the report and he knows about it, like this thing just simply exists. Also, I'm realizing one of the reasons why it might make me think of something from Buffy is because the redness around the mouth is kind of like the Master from Buffy. Fruit Punch Mouth, I believe he was referred to as once. I can kind of just because the photo on IMDb is the creature, so I've been looking at him the entire time I've been talking about the episode. So, hey, anyway, that is episode 2 of the X-Files season 2. What is coming next time? I think I forgot to do this last time. I don't think I did the next time on at the end of episode 1. But next episode we have something called Blood. I said that as if I don't know what blood is. You know what I mean? The episode's called Blood. Here's the description at IMDb. I'm going to lean forward because it's too far away. Oh, I'm leaning back. Squeak, squeak. Alright. Mulder and Scully investigate a series of violent killings committed by seemingly normal residents of a small town. Okay. Sounds intriguing enough. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, very good. So that is the show. Thank you very much for joining me. I always appreciate it. You can support all the content by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting over there on a monthly basis. You can hit the like button. That's completely free. That helps more people find the show and the channel. So thank you very much. And I did mention the Mail Fuzz Movies is where all the movie podcasts live and all the movie reviews go. The sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment, might be the most relevant if you're a fan of the X-Files. So thank you very much for joining. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?